Hello, Wiki peeps. Good Saturday to you. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for viewing it live and or catching this fun hangout with WikiTree later in the week. You can always do that. I've got a list of links in the description on the watch feed, so you can actually go and catch it another time later on. Turning down my volume. I've been sitting here warning people to make sure their volume was down, and then one of my computers' volume was up too loud. Because Murphy's here, isn't it, Karen?
That's what I said. That's the way these things go, right? The best planning, and then when you go live, there's always something exciting happening.
It's always a something. Rosanna Zanadana says that. So this is a WikiTree LiveCast presented by Grandma's Jeans with Mags Galden. On today's LiveCast, we have leader Michael Stills, and we may be joined at some point by Keith Hathaway. Julie Ricketts is off playing in Arizona with her husband. She said she may or may not be able to drop in and join the chat or join the watch. I hope that she enjoys herself in Arizona, whether she comes or not. I'm not upset that she's not here. I'm not. I just cried a little bit this morning, just a little bit. In her stead, in her place, is Karen Tobo. Say hi, Karen.
Hi, Mags. It's great to be with you this afternoon.
Yeah, great. So she's going to be in the tree moderating questions from WikiTreeers who are chiming in from our live chat, which we have a few already chiming in. If you have any questions, please post them to the live chat window as we chat with Michael, and Karen will pop in and ask your question. Even if you have a follow-up to a question that we've just asked, you can do that. Michael is having some technical difficulties right now, so we're going to bounce. He just got back. Welcome back, Michael. We're just getting ready to introduce you. And he is here. He's not here. We can't tell. I'll go ahead and introduce him while he's getting himself situated. Michael Stills has been a WikiTreeer since December of 2011. That's a long time. He has 11,713 contributions, 794 thank yous, and his profile has been accessed 11,033 times. He has 60 badges, and he has his fingers in the Integrators project, the Connectors project, the Rangers project, the 1776 project, which he co-leads with Kitty Smith, the Military and War project, the Profile Improvement project, the Puritan Great Migration project, the Irish Roots project, and he just has his fingers in everything, and I'm not quite sure he's actually gotten himself to where he can join us. So we're going to continue on. I'm going to run down and just tell you the Friday numbers. Yesterday when I checked the WikiTree main page, I saw that we are growing. We have 13,134,231 million profiles posted by 395,939 genealogists. And that's just so cool. And then somebody, I believe Karen, added that we've even increased since then. We're up to 13,141,986 for the millions of profiles that we have, and 396,230 genealogists. Thanks for that update, Karen. Michael, have you gotten yourself situated? Are you with us?
You can see me?
We can't see you, but we can certainly hear you.
Okay. Not sure what the deal is.
That's okay. We'll go ahead and ask you some questions anyway. I just finished introducing you. And if you didn't hear your numbers, you have some impressive numbers. You should watch this later and find out what your numbers are. That's fun to do. So I ran down all the projects that you're involved in on WikiTree, and we're going to discuss some of the projects you have outside of WikiTree as well. But let's start with WikiTree. I always like to ask people this question.
Wait.
Oh, there you are.
Before we get started, on behalf of all my descendants,
Yes.
I'd like to thank you for having this recorded, because this will be nice documentation for future descendants. So thanks.
Always thinking like a genealogist, aren't you, Michael?
I try.
So one of my favorite questions to ask people that I know that are really involved in WikiTree is, how did you discover WikiTree?
I don't remember.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Come on, Michael.
I dabble on the internet all the time. I've been doing that, playing around the internet before there was an internet. And I'm sure in one of those sessions, because it took me 2 years to actually figure out how to really start using WikiTree.
Oh, yeah. So it was a steep learning curve for you.
Yeah, it was just an interesting site in the beginning. And I talk about it on G2G and elsewhere about the whole paradigm shift of really embracing WikiTree. So.
Well, you know, for a lot of people, it's a hard thing to wrap their minds around, because it's overwhelming. It absolutely, there is so much and so much going on that when you first walk in the door, you're just, what do I do? I understand that. I get that 100%. And when I said it's a steep learning curve, it was kind of a fun jab at you, but it's the truth. Even our most experienced and our best WikiTreeers, if we have any that are the best, we've all stumbled in the door. I did. I stumbled in the door and fell in love, and I'm sure that you did too.
Well, as I've written on other places, this idea of collaborative genealogy is actually started on the internet. Every site that you go to is built around you building your tree. And reaching out is only to get information from somebody else, because, of course, everybody else's is wrong and yours is right. Do that whole mental mind shift of this is collaboration, and there is a way to proceed with genealogy by reaching out and working with others. And that's a different way of thinking.
Yeah, I think collaboration is a unique facet, and that's one of the biggest draws. Karen, do you agree with that?
Yes, I definitely see the major strength of WikiTree is, as our new tagline says, you know, where genealogists collaborate. I think I've heard Michael and I have talked before about when someone expresses an interest in genealogy, so often they're handed a blank pedigree chart and said, here, you go do this, you know, alone at the library, or, you know, and it just doesn't have to be a solitary hobby at all. It's so much more fun to hear the wisdom of those who have gone before, or to take on a project together. I've been working with Isabelle Racineau on some French ancestors recently, and I get greeted by distant cousins almost every day. I love collaborating with the other members on WikiTree.
It's an important part, and it's what makes WikiTree WikiTree. And a part of that collaboration is taking information from our G2G forum and making sure that it gets out in the tree. And isn't that kind of what the Integrators project is about, Michael?
There's two distinct websites. There's WikiTree, and then there's the G2G forum. And a lot of people don't notice that, but that's part of the architecture. And so what we've learned as the G2G forum gets popular, people come there with questions, they get lots of great answers. So there's a lot of energy and effort happening on G2G that doesn't make it back to WikiTree. So somebody asks about an ancestor, I'm trying to find the parents, and somebody else goes out and finds them all the sources for that. Necessarily mean it makes it back to WikiTree. So again, if we're a collaborative site and we're all working together, we want that information on WikiTree. We have three basic tags that we use. Integrator profiles. So if somebody's bringing up information about a profile that's not on WikiTree, we like to see it tagged profile. Then we can go back and add that to WikiTree. if somebody's answering questions with sources, but the profile is already on there, we try to link the question to the profile. Sources can then be added to the profile. That puts a link on the profile back to G2G. So if somebody discovers that profile on WikiTree, they can go read all the discussion about that ancestor too. And then the third one is resources. We see a lot of people saying, here's a great resource for this, here's a great resource for that. So we try and tag that. And I know John Vickery had been going through and building a resources list. So
that's a huge thing, huge thing. I don't know if a lot of people realize that they're two separate entities, so that when something gets posted in G2G, it doesn't automatically end up. Somebody's actually being the Wizard of Oz in the background and making it happen.
Yeah, and we need several somebodies that will do that. So
I know that with the Southern Colonies Project, we put a call out to people to be the project coordinator who is the official integrator for the project. Do a lot of the projects have official integrators that work with the G2G forum to make sure that?
Yeah, the integrators was something Keith Hathaway had started building. There was a lot of energy into that. And I think it actually predates Keith. And then I was asked to be involved. And then my life changed dramatically for the last 6 months. So it's sort of been on hiatus. So there hasn't been a lot of effort yet into coordinating and pulling in others.
Well, it sounds to me like there should be more project members to maybe to move it forward. I don't think it's not moving forward. I think it's moving forward. And I think that having more project members would help with that, especially if you had project coordinators who were a part of the Integrators project that could help you get this going.
We do have a list of folks that are doing different aspects. You know, is very diligent about getting the weekend chats going. In addition, you know, he's on there all the time helping folks out. Yes. So there's a nice group of people who are just consistently on WikiTree that work behind the scenes. We just haven't put a lot of effort yet, just because we haven't been able to pull our act together to get it going.
Well, and we do have real lives, right? I was looking at your G2G profile, and just for anybody who doesn't know, I'll throw that out there, that it's genealogist to genealogist forum. That's what we're meaning when we say G2G. I looked at your G2G profile, Michael, and it says you have 236,180 points with 615 answers. 164 of those voted best. Nice job. My question is, when you have time to be on WikiTree, when real life is not getting in the way of your passion, do you find that you spend most of your time working on G2G, or do you think that your time is spread out evenly amongst your projects? How do you balance this?
Instead of a lot of irons in the fire, I have a lot of fires with irons. I have to run around stoking the fires. I put out a lot of stuff out there, and somebody will, like, somebody just responded with some stuff on my Sheldon line, for example, and it could have implications for the 1776 project, basically. I'm trying to untangle 2 Revolutionary War Sheldons. And so as a result of that, I run over there and I spend all my time working that out. But then somebody else will come in, you know, just trying to think of, well, you know, we just had a little discussion on place names and trying to coordinate those. And I had to go through a little experience sorting out my Bristol work. And so I run over there and I work on that one for a while. So it's just, I'm pulled in a lot of directions. All the projects I'm involved in, to me, I didn't ask to join. So My wife, for example, all her grandparents are born in Ireland. So I was asked to join the Irish Roots Project because I was spending a lot of time working with the Irish.
You look Irish.
My wife's side is, I think Ancestry says somewhere in the neighborhood of 13%, but I'm still trying to find the actual Irish ancestor.
All right. And speaking of your descent or your genetic makeup, I noticed that you have taken a DNA test and that you do have 2 other people on your profile who've also taken DNA tests, along with your mother, I believe it is. On back to G2G, can you explain the whole reason behind the upvotes and the downvotes on the questions?
Well, I didn't create that.
Well, I know, I'm
Chris,
not accusing you. I'm just wanting you to explain it.
As it's been explained to me, I think it's just another of the fun ways to get people to engage. You know, today it's the likes on Facebook. Just, you know, we like what somebody has to say. I don't think there's any purpose beyond that, but people take it as they're voting on whether or not somebody had made a good comment or a bad comment. I want everybody to keep it positive on G2G just to keep the atmosphere fun. But, you know, downvotes. I remember the first time I got a downvote. I was like, what? And I couldn't even really tell exactly what it was they were downvoting. And then when I realized some people just make a mistake.
Yes.
Those buttons can be small on a device. And so some of them are just thinking there's a different way to go. They don't have any malice towards what you're saying. And so I think it's just an imperfect way of communicating. But so to me, it's just a fun way of getting engaged, supporting folks for what they have to say.
Karen, you have a take on the upvotes and the downvotes?
You know, for myself, like you said, I really try to accentuate the positive, you know, and I think the only time you would see a downvote from me is if you're posting an idea that I strongly disagree with that approach. Yeah, I might click that, but I'm also going to add a friendly comment to tell you how I feel about it. So I suppose it would have to be pure meanness to earn a real downvote from me. And I noticed in our chat that Hillary Gadsby has joined, and she's looking forward to hearing about the 1776 project today.
Yeah, well, and that was going to be my next question. There are 16 integrators that have badges, and 326 members of the 1776 project, which you also co-lead. As a leader, how do you wrangle all the questions and the badges and all the other stuff in leading these two huge projects on WikiTree?
I leave that to Kitty.
And then to Kitty?
Kitty Smith is my co-leader. Actually, I don't know that we get a lot of questions. We do get a lot of people who want to join because everybody wants to be proud of their patriot ancestor. And I think the 1776 project, Kitty and I have talked about this, was really nothing more than a way for people to celebrate their patriot ancestor, to bring a little recognition and bring them together. Kitty's part of the Daughters of the American Revolution and got really heavily involved in building that site. It's her baby, and I brought in to help support her because I have close to 20 identified patriot ancestors. So I spend a lot of time in that area. It's also an area of history that I'm really interested in, and so my background is in volunteer nonprofit management. That's my professional degree. And this is a kind of project just lends itself to people who just want to come in and do a few little tidbits here and there to grow that. So we don't ask for anything more than to appropriately identify your patriot ancestor with the guidelines on the page. You know, and if you run into crossed others, go ahead and tag them so we can get them recognized. But there isn't a coordinated effort to run out and find them all and document them.
Well, it is up to us to add our profiles and then recognizes. Karen and I were talking about this before the live cast today. I was saying that I have a Patriot ancestor that was just a civil guy. He was recognized because he sold supplies and stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
no, and that's recognition based off of guidelines around the DAR. So if you have a Patriot ancestor that's not in the DAR, you can still put the 1776 tag on them. And I want to be clear that this is not just for Patriot ancestors. You know, we have Hessians, we have French, we have German, English, we have the Loyalists.
Huguenots.
Just a recognition of that era.
Right. Karen, did you have something you wanted to interject?
Oh, just I was, like you mentioned, we were talking about our many ancestors that we've discovered that lived in that revolutionary era, and I made a bit of a resolution to join the Daughters of the American Revolution myself this year. And while I do have several ancestors that fought in the U.S. Army, the ancestor I've selected to document first signed an oath of allegiance. He was actually a French American who had come into Indiana when the English, had promised to stay on their side of the Appalachians, but boy, we all know they didn't. I'm mostly English myself, and we all came over the mountains into the Midwest and further west, and so all the Frenchmen and Vincennes were hauled into the church and asked to sign oaths of allegiance to the American government, and that's the patriot I'm going to start with, Antoine Bourdeville.
Yeah, I have an ancestor who signed an oath of allegiance too, but he had to sign the oath to get out of prison. He was in jail because he was a Tory for a while during the Revolution, and I don't think he ever changed his color of coat. Even though his children, many of his kids, fought for the American side, I think that he was a loyal British fella until he died, even though he took the oath. So I couldn't, he took the oath, but he couldn't become a DAR member. It just wouldn't work. Then I wanted to ask you, Michael, who is your favorite 7076 profile person? Are you related to George Washington, or?
We're related to everybody, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Connectors Project. Come on. I don't know that I have a favorite. I mean, it's whoever I'm working on at the moment. So one I'm thinking of at the moment is Michael Anton. I think it's Garrett. I keep saying Garreau, but I think it's Garrett. Was French. He was denied a pension because all his records were destroyed and he couldn't show proof of service on the ships, but it's all known in the family. And I'd been working on it for years in this and just really fleshed that out. It was amazing.
Well, that is so cool
that he did. And so he's one I think may qualify, even though there's no proof of service in the Continental Army. They didn't deny that he provided service. They just denied that he provided service in the Continental Army and therefore no pension. So to me, that's a backwards recognition that he provided service, so he should qualify.
Okay. I was expecting you to come up with some George Washington genes or something.
No, he's like times removed. I have a page off of my profile. There's two of them. One is anybody can go to a site and see how all the presidents are related to each other. And then the other is I've set up, which other people can copy. You can just plug in your WikiTree ID and you'll find out all your connections to all the presidents.
And I have a link to Michael's profile and links to other things that we're talking about this afternoon in the description section of the viewing channel here. So if you want to check out those links, you can go to Michael's profile right now if you'd like and look at it by going down and picking up that link.
I just wonder how the 1776 project has helped people in their research, or what sort of collaboration we've seen happening.
I'd love to hear from others. I'd like to hear that. I know most people are just proud to be able to tell us how many or who they're related to, and some ask questions on how to find more information about them. And
yeah, we're hearing in the chat window from our famous ancestors. Dennis Wheeler mentions President Andrew Jackson's wife, and Charlotte has found so far that she's related to all of the presidents except our current one, and all but a few of the wives. And you know, there are many of us who've been here in the U.S. for quite a while, and it doesn't take much to find your connection to all of the folks of the era.
Well, I would double check some of those.
Yeah.
Irish ancestry ends really quick. He's a difficult one. There's about 4 presidents, I can't call them off the top of my head, who have short histories. So if they are, I mean, other people have claimed that too. Just double check your sources. But I'd love to hear more about those that can show an actual connection to all of the presidents. Donald's going to be hard because German and Scottish ancestry that disappear right away. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Back to your being a patriot in a sense, Michael. You are an Explorer Scout, and I say you are one because you're never not an Explorer Scout once you become one. You are an Explorer Scout. You are a National Park Ranger, which I found just fascinating. You worked at a Wilderness Institute, and I'm assuming that some of your most important occupation that you think of is being a father, because you have a story about your daughter's birth that is front and center on your WikiTree profile page. It's the biggest thing on your resume. Have any of these jobs, in your mind, contributed to your genealogical work?
Nothing specific. You know, I just general curiosity about the way the world works. I think, you know, with the Park Service, there's a lot of history involved. I really didn't get involved into genealogy until I went to my grandfather's funeral and discovered that I had all these great uncles that I had no idea even existed. I asked my aunt, well, who were they? And would she write me a letter about it? And I didn't get one for 5 years, but that kind of what launched me. And then what pulled me back in was my daughter coming home. And with that, you know, we have to do an ancestry tree. So I dug up the old stuff, and you know, I still actually haven't answered her question, because every time you get an answer, you have 2 more questions.
Yes, you do.
So that's what motivated the story. I've got a story written about the never-ending question. But yeah, you know, I'm a proud father. That's probably the motivation behind a lot of that, but just mostly curiosity.
And building on that, Karen, what got you involved in genealogy?
You know, my grandfather, Harvey Lowe, had done some research into the Lowe, or the Lau family from East Tennessee, and he had a real heavy focus on that paternal line, where I've had some breakthroughs with the advent of DNA testing. I remember a time when I got interested. I had his work out. I saw in the newspaper or somewhere that the local Genealogy Society was going to meet at the reference library in the next town over in Maryville, Indiana. So I convinced my mom to drive me the 30 minutes over there on a weekend or an evening, I can't recall. Opened up the conference room door and just saw a sea of white heads, all the lovely white hair.
How old were you?
I was about 14, 15.
Okay.
And I remember being intimidated by that and deciding not to go in. And then we drove back home. And now, as the secretary of our local Boulder Genealogical Society, I just kick myself because I know how welcome the members would have made me feel, and how much help I could have gotten from an early age from people who were just generations ahead of me on their research. But I think I got interested in his work, and then was an early member of Ancestry and RootsWeb, and
so you were an
people tester.
You were a very early Genia geek.
Right, I suppose so. And I put it aside over many years, but then when I, became an adult and had my own home and free time, it's really become my number one passion right now.
Michael, how old were you when you started getting involved in genealogy?
Well, my grandfather died in '72, so or '78 maybe. I can't remember. So
I love
actually,
how genealogies have you're so specific on those dates now.
Yeah, I know. I have to look at the documentation, but it's I think I was actually 16 when I asked my grandmother that question. But I had asked over and over. I had to tell my mom who her grandfather was.
Oh yeah.
We didn't get a lot of stories. One of the things I really like about genealogy is pretty much 90% of the information that I have, the photos and other stories and family books, have come from family members that I have found. My family wasn't the family of the stuff got passed down to. And so I'm really jealous of all those folks that have these really great heirlooms and stories and stuff like that. I had to go find mine through other people.
Yeah, I hear you. So you were early too. I know that we were at a genealogical conference here in Ottawa in June, and we were commenting on how many young people there were at this conference in Ottawa, and everybody was really excited that there was such a youthful energy in the conference because we had these kids. It was great. Back to you and your projects. One of the pet projects that you have just started working on, or you're working on, is the Charter Members of Bristol, Massachusetts Plymouth Colony. I thought there was just a Plymouth Colony. Is this for a town, a ship? What is it?
I'm still learning. That's exactly why I started this project. It was to start gathering up all the resources and put me in a position of really having to learn colonial history. And so if you actually see a map of what Plymouth Colony was, they designate a latitude and a longitude, and like it extends way out into the wilderness that nobody even really knows. So we think of just that small community in the beginning, but as it grew, there were several such communities, one of which becomes Bristol. So it's within the bounds of the Plymouth Colony Charter. And so it evolves over time. And then in 1680, so 1620 Plymouth is established. In 1680, John Gorham, before that he had bought rights to develop a town, and he had to go out and find 60 families to join him. And by 1680, he had found them. In 1681, they had their first town, named the town Bristol. But it's within the area, the Plymouth Colony Charter.
So it's a town in the Plymouth Charter. I know that Plymouth Colony was also a part of Maine at some point. So yeah, it was huge.
Yeah, and I hadn't seen that, but I'll check that. But yeah, no, and then Rhode Island comes along and they get a charter, and then they're on the bounds and boundary, and there's some disputed land. And then what I'm learning, and this comes back to our place names group, it's really difficult to nail something down. You really have to study a specific location to see how it administratively bounced back and forth between the name of the town, the creation of a county, and so it's an interesting evolution. You really learn how that worked. So one of the things I learned, which has an effect on all this too, is Plymouth Colony, we understand, gets started for religious reasons. Well, Bristol was a commercial enterprise. They created that for any purpose other than to start making money. So learning those histories is interesting, and you learn a lot about how they were created, and we'll learn more about England and English history, and so to study all that.
That's fun. It's a new project for you, so this is probably not a good question to ask you right now, but of all the projects that you're working on WikiTree and in your personal life, which one's your favorite?
As I said before, I think it's just I'm a dabbler. Okay, I like to experiment with a lot of stuff, and then something catches my fancy, and I work on it for a while until I think I got it figured out, and then I move on. Then I might bounce back. Now, the Bristol one is fun because it allows me to engage the community in ways that a newcomer can't.
Right.
So I have something about the history, and so I can help share with others in the community who might not know that history. And so that helps me, helps them enjoy, learning something. So,
as I mentioned just a minute ago, you have outside projects as well on the go, besides the time that you spend on WikiTree. And one of them that you have is currently Myths, Legends, and Lies, the Dangers of Family History Research. Can you handle the truth? Presentation. You want to give us a rundown on what this is about?
Yeah, so, Ancestry's out there waving all the shaky leaves, and they have these great stories about how exciting it would be to find your ancestors. And if you look around, that's all the advertising and marketing is to hook you in, and you make all these wonderful discoveries. It is. I mean, we do make wonderful discoveries, but there are a lot of skeletons in people's closets, and so there's an ethic to what you discover and how you handle that, particularly when it hits close to home or people are still living. And so rather than blasting that out all over the internet, because it's a fun story, you have to realize that this may impact someone's life. I remember reading one author did a DNA test to write about DNA, and he discovered his father wasn't his father, and it tore the whole family apart.
Wow.
And so you really have to think about that. So Myths, Legends, and Lies covers that kind of ethic, but it also brings up the story of the three brothers. Everybody hears this, well, we had three brothers that came to America. One went north, one went south, and one settled in the east, and that's my ancestor. The other two, we don't know where they are. There's variations of the seven brothers. I have a seven brother story, but it's the same thing. But there's absolutely no documentation to support that. It's a myth that's told in many families. Now, that doesn't mean somebody might have some documentation and be an exception, but when you hear that, you got to be aware of it.
Right.
And then there's just outright lies that people tell. Gustav Andrew was a fraudulent genealogist, and he was really good at it. He was a forger by trade. So, and so what happens in these discussions about all this stuff is you learn what is a source and how to ask questions. So for example, everybody knows, or not everybody, but those of us been doing it for a while, Ancestry has the international marriages database, and everybody clicks on that as a source, but nobody ever reads about what that source is. What is that database? When you read about it, all it is a collection of people who have submitted their own ancestors. So there's no documentation on that. It's not a source. It's just a clue.
Gotcha.
And so the same thing. I have in my presentation, I have my brother's birth certificate. My brother is my half brother, but his birth certificate says my dad is his dad. And so it could be easily somebody run out and document my brother's parents are my parents, without ever examining the document. And then you realize the document was issued in 1963. My brother's 12 years older than me. And that's when I was born. My mom was married just a few years earlier. So then you start piecing it together, and my dad had adopted my brother, and they had it legally changed to show him as my brother's father.
Which would really trip somebody up.
Yeah, and I thought that was pretty unique. And then I started talking with others, and Ohio adoptions, I guess, are littered with such birth certificates. So it's something to pay attention to. You got to do your due diligence and really understand what it is you're looking at and where it came from and where that information is coming from.
That's really fascinating. And Michael is going to be giving this presentation, Myths, Legends, and Lies, the Dangers of Family History Research, at the Bristol, Rhode Island Historical Preservation Society on March the 4th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So if you're in the area, it would be great to go see it. And if it gets recorded, I am sure that we would love to post it into the WikiTree media section if the Bristol Historical and Preservation Society is okay with that.
Yeah, I have concerns about recording it. There's probably a good way to record it. I try to be more interactive, which I don't think necessarily translates to a video recording.
Right.
You know, unless it was shot from the back of the room kind of a deal. Because I really try to get audience participation in my presentations. But, you know, we could think about how to maybe do a version of that.
Right. Well,
that would be great.
Be great. Or at least you could submit your slides and we could put them up so that people could see them.
Slides tend to be more of an outline.
So what else do you have? What else do you have going on, Mike? Goal.
And genealogy wise, not a lot at the moment. I just went to, I have to thank my Mountain Genealogist Society. They purchased me a membership to the New England Historic Genealogical Society before I left Colorado.
How cool is that?
And I just went and visited, and it's a little bit intimidating, but exciting at the same time. You ask one question, you don't really get an answer to your question, but you get a ton of other questions and research to go research before you get to ask that question.
Oh, how fun. How fun. I have one more question for you, and it's the last question. What is your favorite color, Michael?
Green.
Wrong. It's orange.
Because it pairs nicely with orange.
Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you and see if we've got anybody with questions from the live chat.
You know, a few minutes ago when we were talking about Michael's work as a park ranger, Charlotte was curious which national parks he was associated with.
My first job was with Mesa Verde. I was seasonal ranger. I worked at Mesa Verde National Park in visitor protection. Mine was law enforcement, emergency medical, search and rescue stuff. And then my long-term goal at the time was to travel from park to park to park. So my next season was a winter season at Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area, which is really close to where I grew up. And my plan got interrupted because I met my future wife there. So those were the two parks I actually worked in. I did get sent to Yellowstone in 1988 to fight those big fires that happened. It burned half the park. That was over about a 3.5-year period. So.
Thanks. We've seen some lively discussion about the tales of Indian ancestors in our family tree, and on sites like Ancestry, maybe we should talk a bit about how to weed out the questionable stuff from the good stuff. They've got a wealth of really valuable primary source collections, and then, as we mentioned, we like to complain about that U.S. marriage records collection that doesn't have any actual marriage records. And Vic was talking about how often those shaking leaves can lead us to combine facts from multiple ancestors into one. What advice do you have for taking good advantage of some of the sources we have and watching out for the pitfalls?
I missed the question. What's just general advice on how to avoid?
Yeah. Finding the good information and watching out for some of the things on our favorite genealogy sites that might lead us astray.
You know, Mags, you asked what else was I involved in. When things settled down, I'm hoping to pursue professional certification. But right now, anybody can go to the Association of Professional Genealogists at their site. They have a page of the genealogical process and an ethics guideline of what to subscribe to. And that's what begins to teach you how to look at a source and how to evaluate it anywhere. And so every site, you know, WikiTree included, has a bunch of bad information. So people, it's funny, I hear people saying, well, I don't go on Ancestry because they have bad information. Well, if that's your criteria, then you can't go on any site because they're all full of bad information. They're all a bunch of clues, but if you follow the right process, you can sort the clues out for actual real information.
I think
Develop that mindset.
you have to develop that mindset, but you also, with WikiTree, what sets WikiTree apart from all the other sites is that when we have bad information, we work to make it right. We work to correct it. We try and make our tree healthy. So I want to just point that out.
And that's why I say I love WikiTree, because that collaborative aspect, once you buy into it, really helps you tackle this stuff. And it's our community that supports good sourcing. And because of that, we can compare it to Family Search. And I love Family Search because they have a lot of great databases, and you know they make it easy to get a citation, but their family tree is plagued with problems. On WikiTree, we actively pair and update. So if somebody wants help, they're going to get help, and that's what makes us unique, I believe.
Yeah, and that can segue right into a post that Isaac Goy, apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, he did a WikiTree G2G question this week. It had 76 views and 2 answers, and what to do about unsourced family tree shown on WikiTree. And the answer was anyone is allowed to add sources to open profiles. We have a whole category for them called unsourced profiles. And every month, a member group of members have a contest, and they're called sorcerers. And we have this month's contest going on. It's a really fun way to contribute, and you do a lot of sourcing and you get things going. And we also have a really cool thing going on weekly called the Saturday Sourcing Sprints, and that is going on today. And let me update my information right now. Starts at midnight on Saturday Eastern time, midnight, and goes to 11:59 Saturday night. And we have somebody who is working on something near and dear to my heart. They're working on Templeton profiles. I wonder how many of these are actually my profiles they're working on. Sheena Tate has got 12 of those sourced right now. There's also at the bottom of the page in the description, you'll see a list of the information for links for that as well, for sourcing, for the Saturday Sourcing Sprint. There's also a link for the WikiTree 1776 project. There's a link also for the WikiTree Integrators project, a list of all of our live casts that we're doing. We've got quite a few more that are confirmed, and of course Michael's WikiTree profile. We had another G2G question this week, which was really huge. It had over 1,200 views and 42 answers, and it was the leader of the Greeters project and the most every Saturday moderator here on the live cast from Julie Ricketts. The question of the week is, what do you do when you find a black sheep? And this kind of goes back to what Michael was talking about earlier about knowing what to make public and what not to make public. And some of the answers to that question were jump for joy and glee, and it adds flavor to the tree. Another answer was tell the truth. Another answer was history is history and it should be told with the facts, but be careful of family feelings. Timing and circumstances are everything like you. I would not include the potentially hurtful stories in a public profile for living people or people with living first-degree links, parents, siblings, children, spouses. But everybody else is fair game. Another answer is I include black sheep and record a record of their life in the censuses, birth, marriage, death. I might even cite a newspaper article if I know it. But the average reader will not know the wolf beneath the sheep's clothing without researching the sources and considering the dates on their own. And this particular answer says that they might even create a fictional work later. Another answer is that they enjoy the mystery and the detective work in finding the truth. And back to what Michael was talking about, the whole Ben Affleck not wanting Henry Louis Gates to reveal his slave owner history on TV. And indications of who owned slaves in an area could potentially be helpful in helping the descendants of those slaves find out where they lived and who they lived with at that time. And finally, we all have them, and there is no sense pretending otherwise. Julie, oh, I wish Julie was here. Hey, Julie. Karen, do you or Michael have a follow-up to the black sheep story? And Michael, this would be in addition to the comments you've already made.
Well, you mentioned Ben Affleck. I've used him as an example in the past as what a huge missed opportunity they had.
Right.
Ben's reaction is a typical response. And if he'd allowed that to be filmed and then the process of working through that and understanding how to put that in historical context, and that neither do we get the credit for our ancestors nor do we get the blame, I think it would have been really great for genealogists to just accept there are stuff like that in your background, but it has nothing to say about you as a person.
No.
Right. I don't know if I have a black sheep story for you right now, but over in the chat, a couple of things that came up was Emma Macbeth is wondering if those Saturday sprints are every Saturday. And Michael Peck's wondering if we have any stories about genetic genealogy.
I do. And I think I saw Mr. Wheeler pop in. Dennis had a question that we're going to discuss. The Saturday sourcing sprints are every Saturday from 11:59 Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time, if it happens after March 12th. They are every Saturday, the Saturday sourcing sprints, and I think that that they're talking about trying to get some of the teams back active that we had from the Sourceathon in the Saturday sourcing sprints. So yes, those are every Saturday, as are the live casts. I'm even, if I'm at the cottage for 2 weeks, I'm actually going to try and do my live cast live from the cottage. We'll see how connectivity is that week. The DNA that we were going to talk about, Dennis Wheeler had a question that was one of the top questions this week. He had 97 views and 2 answers, and his question was, do I have enough information to use the confirmed with DNA tag? And the best answer that I could see, there were quite a few best answers, but the best one that I could see, none of them was chosen yet as best answer, was from Kay Wilson. And she says, hi, Dennis. We have excellent information here on WikiTree to explain what you need to do before marking a person's relationship to either of his parents confirmed with DNA. And there's a link there that I'll post into the description of the live cast as well. It is the confirmation DNA link. On your profile, you can see that 2 of your second cousins once removed, Jay Stanford and Rit Garrett, have taken DNA tests as well. And Kay wanted to know if he had contacted either one of them. They both tested at Ancestry, and you tested at Family Tree DNA. And she points out a really important thing, that you have your results posted to GEDmatch. Now, if both Jay and Rit, the cousins, or the DNA cousins, will also upload their test information to GEDmatch, then you'll be able to see if you share about the same amount of DNA with them that you expect for second cousins one time removed, which is about 100 centimorgans or so. If you do, then you can use the information on this page to see which relationships can be marked as confirmed with DNA, and that's the confirmed with DNA or the DNA confirmation. You can also get to that fairly easily if I can pull it up real quickly here. At the top of your profile page, there's a series of drop-down menus, and the very first one, you can go down to My WikiTree and go down to DNA confirmation and pull that up and find the information that you're looking for. And there's lots of good information. It shows all of your testers and the people who match you. And you can enter in your confirmed information there as well.
And I would just caution us to read our help guidelines on that confirmed with DNA. I've seen folks who have taken a test, like I'm one of those folks who've taken 3 or 4, and they'll run and put confirmed with DNA on every ancestor that they've added to WikiTree. And so I think we've developed some great guidelines for when is it relevant to make that confirmation. I've been able to do it on lines where I have multiple cousins that are matching either on the same segment of autosomal or more specifically for me with mitochondrial and Y DNA, where just because I've taken a test doesn't mean all of my 3rd grade grandparents are now confirmed with DNA.
That's so true, Karen. That's a good point. I do have a WikiTree genealogy tip of the day. When cleaning out a relative's house after they've moved or into a retirement community, or if they've passed away and you're having to deal with cleaning out the stuff and going through their family information, look out for address books. Don't throw those out. Why? Because you might find some living cousins you didn't know about in it, and you might be able to contact them. That wraps us up for the day. I want to thank Michael Stills for being here and giving us his wonderful and contagious personality for the hour. Karen, thank you so much for standing in for Julie today. And all the Wiki peeps who have joined us in the chat, great to have you. We'll see you next week when Alesh Tricknick, Alesh might get mad at me for the last name pronunciation, will be here and be our guest to talk about the Database Era project. He's a project leader and a WikiTree team member, and he'll talk all things data doctors. I don't know how you data doctors feel about the word geek or about the word wiki geek, but I think WikiGeek fits so many of you and us all so well. Thanks very much for being here. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Karen. Have a great Saturday.